it is so crazy beautiful out here. It just, I'm amazed. I can't wipe the smile off my face. It's just so pretty out here. I don't know if you can see it. Hold on. My head's blocking the view probably, but yeah, it's just crazy. It's awesome.
Welcome to another episode of the Limitless Podcast, wherever you're at. I hope you're healthy. I hope you're happy. I hope you're remaining optimistic in these difficult times. And to help you stay optimistic today, we're going to talk about goals. We're going to talk about big goals. We're going to talk about crazy, impossible goals that maybe you've got in the back of your mind. And this just might be the time while you've got some downtime to really think about them. And to do that, we've got another awesome guest. Her name is Lauren Roerick. She recently left her career, her job as a fundraising director for nonprofits. She's also a certified yoga instructor and holistic health coach. She left her job to chase her huge goal, which was hiking the Pacific Crest Trail from Mexico to Canada. And those of you that have been with me for a while, you know that is one of my goals. I have an affinity for people that shirk society and responsibility to some degree and say, you know what, I'm going to go off and chase this goal, even though it seems crazy. And this is a little bit different of a hiking year because of what is going on in the world and this crazy virus. She is currently off trail to join us. So Lauren, welcome to the Limitless Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So let's go back in time. When did the thought of hiking the PCT from Mexico to Canada, taking 5 to 6 months out of your life, walking 2,650 plus miles, when did that thought first hit you? What was that like?
So I first sort of discovered the idea of these long trails. I was actually doing my yoga teacher training. This was maybe 2013 or something. And a girl in my class was it was her big dream to hike the Appalachian Trail. So I was like, what the heck is the Appalachian Trail? I'd never heard of it. So she was reading, what's that Bill Bryson book, A Walk in the Woods? And she lent me her copy of it and I just poured over it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like, I didn't know people did this. And then, just kind of being a West Coast girl and also just being a little bit competitive, I was like, oh, well, the PCT is longer than the AT. So I'm going to do the PCT. And then of course, read Wild and read all the books about the PCT and just thought like, this is so cool. So that was ages ago. And then I sort of made a little bucket list goal to do it by the time that I turned 30. And then, life happens. And each summer goes by and I'm like, crap, I'm getting way closer to 30. And then I hit my 30th birthday and I was like, okay, like you told yourself you're going to do this thing. So this is the year. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to say you did it by 30. So it was my 30th birthday. And I said, okay, got to get a PCT permit and figure this out. It was many years in the making, but kind of made that goal to do it by 30.
So you made the goal to do it by 30. How long were you actively planning? Not just planning in your mind or watching videos or reading books, but when was it real? What was that planning period length of the time you're like, okay, this is real. I'm going to start to get a backpack. I'm going to start to decide where am I going to resupply? How am I going to get to San Diego? How am I going to get to Campo, California to the Mexico border? How long had you planned before you started this hike?
That probably started last summer. So somewhere in August, September, that was when I started building the master spreadsheet that I then emailed to all of my friends and family and said, hey, if you were planning on getting me something for my birthday or Christmas, it can't be something that is not on this list. Probably 6 or 8 months ago that it was really like, okay, we got to start making some decisions.
That is a really good subtle point there for everybody. When you have a big goal that you want to accomplish, getting people on your side is really important, even if the goal seems crazy, even if it seems far-fetched. And even though Lauren wasn't saying, hey, help me do this, she was by saying, hey, here's a list of things that don't get me this, which in turn says, there's things I need help, I need support here. mentally, physically, spiritually, we need support to help us reach those goals. And when you've got family members and friends cheering you on, it can help you do things that you wouldn't normally do by yourself. Lauren, describe that moment. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. When you see the monument and you walk up and touch it. For those of you who don't have the desire to hike the PCT, but you do have a desire, there's that aha moment on a goal when you're like, this could be real. Like, I could touch this, whatever it is. When you're a little kid and you got to Disneyland, you saw the gates, you're like, this is real. I'm doing this. What was that like for you, Lauren, when you got to like see the monument, the southern terminus, the Mexico border, and you get to walk up, touch it?
It was so surreal. I mean, even just looking back on the trail, it just sort of feels like it was a weird dream. But yeah, I mean, my parents, they live, in Southern California, so they drove me down to the monument, and my little sister was there, and it was like, it was a little bit stressful, to be honest. It wasn't about to like a mile in where I could finally be like, okay, let's take a deep breath. Where are you? You're on the Pacific Crest Trail. You finally did the thing. It's real. We're here. So I think like the first mile marker was almost more like monumental to me than the actual monument, just because being there, and there was like another person who was starting and his family was there, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is just stressful. I just need to get on the trail and do my thing. So I think, yeah, those were some of the feelings, but it was really cool, to open the logbook and, you see all the people whose names are in it. It's nerve wracking because you're like, oh crap, now I really have to do this. Like, they're just going to drive away and leave me here in the middle of the desert. And then I'm going to have to just walk and, figure out where the heck I'm going. So yeah, it's a mix of nerves and excitement and stress and, all kind of culminating in this moment where you're like, cool, I got to take my very first step on this really, really, really long journey.
And that 1 mile marker, for everybody listening, it's actually really cool. At the 1 mile mark, there's like a road, like when you see on a highway or an interstate, you see the mile markers, mile 227. It says mile 1 at mile 1 of the PCT. So when you hike the PCT, there's 2 pictures that are mandatory on your first day: at the terminus with the monument, and then at that 1 mile marker. So if you do any research on Instagram, everybody, those are the 2 pictures you will see as anybody starts their hikes. And that 1 mile marker is like, you see everybody in it. You see everybody take that picture who's been on the PCT. And so it's like, it feels surreal, like Lauren says, almost historic. And there's that green sign that you get your picture on. So you hit mile 1. You actually did over 100 miles, close to 114, right around 114 miles. That time you were out there, describe what it was like, what you went through. You start and it was surreal and it felt, okay, this is real. I've got everything I need to live on my back. Describe the feeling as you went through it.
Whew, it was a lot. The first thing I noticed is that I just could not wipe the smile off my face, like constantly. I felt like such a dork. I'm just walking around, with my big backpack and my hiking poles with this giant grin plastered on my face. I was just so excited. Like, everything was cool. I didn't expect the desert to be so beautiful. And that's probably partly because we had so much rain in those first couple of weeks. I mean, you yourself went through it as well. We just had all the weather: rain, snow, wind, camping in storms, setting up your tent in the rain, being wet, being cold. So, I mean, that was a little bit unexpected, but it was just so fun to just not have anything else to think about, but like that one goal. The little goals, like, where am I going to get water? Where am I going? Where's the trail go? Ooh, what's around this corner? Ooh, what's coming next? To where am I going to camp? Oh, am I going to meet people? It was just so many questions. There was just so much going on all the time. Yeah, it was really entertaining. I just had such a good time being out there.
What did you love the most?
Maybe just the simplicity of it. I loved just, my tent is it's the Tiger Wall carbon, so that it's basically clear, the whole tent. So every morning, exactly when the sun is coming up because it lights up your whole tent. And I just loved that feeling of, like, you open your eyes and you're like, oh, the sun's up. Because I'm not a morning person. I will sleep as long as you humanly will let me, and so being able to just kind of wake up with the sunrise and just, you feel rested because you went to bed at 8 o'clock because you slept forever. And, you get to slowly kind of work your way out of your tent and start making that fresh cup of coffee, instant coffee. But it's just such a good feeling. I just felt like my body was like, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it just felt very sort of natural. Like, this is the way I should probably wake up most mornings, with some fresh air and some sunshine. And, I don't know, it's just a good feeling to, and then just know that you've got miles and miles ahead of you, and, however many miles you put in, that's awesome. And you have accomplished something really hard by the end of your day. And then you go to bed and then you do it again. So it's the simplicity and the sense of accomplishment that you get every day. I think those are some of my favorite things about, just kind of trail life in general.
And what did you learn about yourself?
I'm a very independent person already, but I kind of realized that I really like to be around people. I thought, as a solo hiker, you really don't know what to expect, whether you're going to meet people or whether you're going to spend most of your days alone. And I ended up, because it was such an early start date, and I think combined with the weather, as I spent most of my days just by myself. And I realized like, oh, okay, maybe I don't spend as much time like with my own thoughts as I thought I did. Because it got a little like creepy at night where I was like, oh, geez, like I just have to, I just pick a spot and I set up my tent and this is where I sleep. So that was a little bit like, kind of eerie feeling, I guess. But I was surprised at how quickly I kind of got past that fear. And then, by the third or fourth night that you camp alone, you're just kind of like, yep, this is what we do. We just set up our tent and we go to bed. And then, we wake up and do it again. And being able to kind of get past that fear, I thought was really cool, because now I feel like I could just go camp anywhere. So that was cool.
And what surprised you, either about yourself or about the trail or about the experience?
I thought that I was going to get bored during the day. I'm sure that, months in, that would be more of an issue. But I was a little bit worried that, all I'm doing is walking all day. And like, I'm going to lose my marbles. Am I going to have enough podcasts to listen to? Am I going to have, audiobooks? Am I just going to be super bored walking all day? But I was so entertained. I didn't listen to anything on my, I didn't put my headphones in for like the first 4 days. Everything was so beautiful and exciting. And there's so many sounds going on and like little creatures to look at and like plant life and, the wind blowing and the weather and whatever. I was really surprised at just how interesting everything was and how I didn't need to sort of supplement that with anything else.
Yes. And that leads us to our next questions. When you say interesting, so Lauren created a video blog that's on YouTube of her trek the whole time of this week or so, a little over a week, this first 114 miles. She did several videos. And in these videos, and this is how I found Lauren, by the way, it's very intriguing because she's interested in what she's doing. And you can tell that she's discovering things along the way. And, this is the crazy thing about life is things are interesting when you find them interesting. And that, sometimes it's innate. You find something interesting, but other times you have to look for what's right. You have to find things to be interested in and get excited about the day. Lauren, your videos were awesome. And you were doing them through a hiking website called The Trek. How did you get picked by The Trek to be one of they only pick a handful of people to actually vlog the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail each year. How did you get picked by The Trek to create these videos?
So every year they do what's called the Badger sponsorship, where they give, 5 or 6 people like a whole bunch of gear and they, promote them on whatever. So it actually applied for their Badger sponsorship and made it to, I guess, the final rounds or whatever. Maybe that's just what they told me to make me feel better, but I did not get selected. However, as a backup, they said, hey, we've watched some of your stuff. We'd love for you to vlog for us. And I thought, oh, cool. I mean, that's kind of what I wanted to do anyway. So it just sort of happened by accident a little bit. But it was, quite a happy accident because I really enjoyed vlogging for them. I watched a ton of their vlogs in preparation for my own trek. So it was, it was fun to be a part of that.
Your videos have a really good mix. They're entertaining because it's a good mix of who you are, what you find interesting, the journey you're on, the fun, what the beauty, but also you're very humble in talking about some of your mistakes and things that you might be scared of or unsure of. So we're gonna tell everybody how you find Lauren's videos. I would encourage you to go watch them. There's a handful of them, because what I always get from people doing hard things in their life and recording it in some fashion is it inspires me. And these videos will inspire you to get out, and it could be hike, it could be just do something you've been wanting to do for a long time. What advice would you give for somebody who's got that idea in their head, but they might be thinking, why would somebody care to watch my YouTube videos?
Do it for yourself. I mean, I didn't really go out with the expectation that anyone was going to find me particularly interesting or different than any of the other, millions of hiking videos out on the internet. I really just made them for me and for my family and, for my friends who said, oh, we'd love to kind of, what are you doing out there? What's the PCT? What is this thing that you're doing? I just did that so I could share with people who had those questions. And then also for myself. So I had a diary or a, record of what was happening. And I found that vlogging and doing those things made me pay attention more anyway. I think a lot of the time people are like, oh, these vloggers, they're just, they're losing the experience because they're just sitting behind their camera. But I really felt that it made me pay attention to the little things and made me think, made me look up for my feet more often and look at the views and think, oh, wow, this is so beautiful. I would love to be able to share this with somebody, who doesn't get the chance to hike the PCT or who doesn't get the chance to do this really cool thing that I've been so privileged to do. So, don't do it for somebody else. Just do it for yourself. I love to look back on my videos. It probably sounds really dumb, but looking back on my footage, I'm just like, wow, what a beautiful place I got to be in. So yeah, I just mostly did it for me. And then, turns out other people thought that was kind of interesting also. So that was a nice benefit.
That is great advice to anybody who is thinking about even just journaling something you're going through, even the current world situation. If you kept daily journal where you just wrote down a few thoughts every day, or you could record it on the video, or you could record audio and just record your thoughts and what you're going through, you will look back and see how far you've come. Like Lauren said, she goes back and looks at she did it for herself. And by doing that, other people found it interesting. Because when you try to do it the opposite way and you try to be interesting, it usually doesn't work out. You usually try too hard and you're not yourself. And so you'll see in these videos of Lauren, she's just herself. And that's what draws people to great content creators, is when they're just their humble selves and they're sharing based on who they are, not trying to hide anything, not try to impress anybody. Your videos were awesome, Lauren. So I hope you continue to make videos no matter what your next hiking journey is or life journey. I hope you continue, because you definitely have a gift.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
So before we talk a little bit more about your hike, because you're obviously not hiking now, so something happened. How do we find these videos on YouTube? What's the best way to find them?
So it's just my first name, last name. So Lauren, last name Roerick. That one's harder to spell, but it's Roerick. And they're all on there on a PCT playlist. Or you can go to the Trek if you already follow them. thetrek.co on YouTube. They're also on a playlist there. So you got a couple ways to find me.
So Lauren's channel is Lauren, Lauren Roerick, Roerick. You can also go to the Trek on YouTube. You can if you just type in her name in the YouTube search, her videos will come up and you'll see that, and just click on the channel and click on the playlist and you can check them out. And right now, when people are binging a lot of content, I would highly encourage you just to get some content, watch these videos just to inspire you, just to give you some levity in everyday life and with all the heavy things that are going on right now. Check those out. Okay, so you made it to a pretty famous PCT town, so to speak, called Warner Springs in Southern California, which is about mile 109, 110. Mm-hmm. Spent the night and then started off, and you had to turn around. What happened?
Yeah. So I got a late start anyway, because I'd been sitting, I was hiking with a couple of other hikers, and we'd been kind of, flipping back and forth because it was raining, but it wasn't raining that much. And we're like, we came out here to hike. We didn't come out here to just sit in tents or sit in lodges and, not be hiking. So I kind of just was like, okay, you know what? I got to do it. I'm just going to get out there and see how it goes. If I'm wet, I'm wet. So I found this couple of Norwegian hikers, and they were heading out as well. So we didn't start hiking till like 11 o'clock. It was pretty late already. But the sun was, kind of peeking out. We're like, yeah, it'll be fine. We'll handle it. So we keep hiking. And as soon as we start getting any elevation, it just starts pouring on us, just pouring rain. I'm like, okay, cool. It's fine. Like we're moving at a good pace. So we're all warm and, fine, whatever. And we stopped to take a water break. Oh no, before that, the rain, the higher you go, the more the rain turns into snow. And we all just thought it was hilarious. We couldn't believe it. We're like, we're out here in, what's supposed to be the California desert, and we're getting poured on, and then we're getting snowed on, and the snow's starting to stick to the ground. We're like, okay, it's getting a little chilly out here. So we stopped to take a water break. And it was at that point that I realized, like, oh, my rain gear is completely soaked through. It's soaked through the rain layer, through my base layer, through my puffy coat, through everything. My rain pants held up, so my legs were dry, but everything on the top half was just soaking wet. So I sort of just made the executive decision that I didn't want to get hypothermia. Being wet and cold is one thing, but being wet and cold for multiple days and not having any way to dry out and then having it go to freezing temperatures overnight didn't seem like a really smart idea. So yeah, I just decided to turn around and head back to Water Springs and make a new plan and find maybe something more waterproof, whether that was a trash bag or something else, and then, figure out a way to carry on after that.
It is perfectly okay to live to fight another day. And sometimes we hit hurdles and real limits. And obviously, everyone listening knows that I feel like everyone's limitless, but there are real limits in this world. And sometimes we have to know that it's okay to take a break, or okay to turn around and say, this isn't for me today. I'll come back. I'll live to fight another day, rather than put yourself in harm's way or go through some brutal failure. And I love that you showed that in your video, Lauren, because some people, believe it or not, would edit that out and just show that they continued hiking. They could take a 3-day break and just pick up, and in editing, you can do whatever you want and make it look like you're superhuman. And I love that you put that in there, that, what, I'm wet, I'm cold, it's snowing, I didn't expect this, I'm turning around. Like that, I think that's such a good message. So you turned around, you went back to Warner Springs, and then your hike ended. Why?
Yeah, so I think it was that evening that we got the infamous message, the email from the PCTA that said, cancel, postpone your hike, or leave the trail. And that, that was sort of the final nail in the coffin of my PCT through hike for now, we're hoping. But yeah, it was an email from the PCTA that said, if you're on the trail, specifically said, if you are already on the trail, we would request that you please leave because of the COVID-19 situation. The trail towns along the way were requesting, hikers not come through, simply because we could very easily be, little virus carriers, and we could carry that all the way up the PCT. As much as we try to be clean, we're not the cleanest folks out there living in the woods. And, it was just going to make things harder. They were starting to shut down national parks, which, the PCT goes through several of them. So it was, going to be a little tricky to carry on. So yeah, I made the decision to leave the trail, sadly.
And what are you doing now? And are you holding out hope that you'll be able to get back on the trail this hiking season?
So I was in a pretty fortunate position where my mom and my stepdad live in Southern California in San Clemente, not too far out from you. So they were only a couple hours from the trail, so I was able to call them and say, hey, can you come pick me up? So they did that, which is awesome. I got lucky there for sure. And now I'm still here because I left my apartment at my job in Raleigh and didn't really have anywhere else to go back to. I haven't lived in Canada for several years, so I'm a little bit just in limbo, kind of, without a true place to go back to. So I'm hanging out with my parents for a little bit. And just trying to make a new plan. My hope was to get back on the trail, but that window seems to be, getting smaller and smaller and smaller as they extend the length of our stay-at-home time. They've extended it to April 30th now, so we're getting, it's cutting into the window that you can complete a through hike in. I'm still holding out a little bit of hope, but we'll see how that goes. I think at some point I might have to make a different plan.
So this is pretty normal in life, that you have a goal and you take action, and then you hit a stumbling block, you hit an obstacle, and maybe it doesn't work out. You had this vision of how you wanted to work out. I'm a big believer in visualization and taking action based on that visualization. sometimes it just doesn't work out. I think that fear resides in along a lot of us. Like, what if we take action and it doesn't work? What if it, what if we fail? What if it doesn't work out for us? So what would you say to somebody else who's missed an opportunity in their life or had some failure or a goal in life just didn't work out how they thought it would, and they're feeling that disappointment? Because disappointment's okay. Like, it's okay to be disappointed for some period of time. What would you say to those people now that the realization setting in the world that there's probably a lot of people who are disappointed, not just in not getting to hike, but maybe other goals that they had in March or April or May? What would you say to somebody? Because you sound very upbeat.
Yeah, you're catching me a couple weeks post leaving the trail. I was less upbeat. But yeah, I mean, truthfully, there's, especially if you're doing something big, this is 2,650 miles, you're going to be disappointed at some point. This is obviously a much bigger disappointment than I had prepared myself for. But, if you're planning something that big and, a journey that long, you're going to run into something that you're like, oh, this is not what I expected. I was not prepared for this. I'm disappointed. Obviously I did not prepare myself for a global pandemic. That was outside of the scope
Shame
of
on
what
you.
I had. I know, right? I know. Embarrassing. That was not on my list of worst case scenarios. But yeah, I mean, now it's just sort of a pivot, whether that is a southbound hike if the parks open up later in the year, or whether that's, there's tons of hikes in Canada. I have the gear, I have the knowledge now, and no one can take those things away from me. I mean, I guess someone could steal all of my gear, but the rest of it is in my brain. You can't take that one. So, I mean, even if I didn't get to complete the whole hike, I feel like I still gained a lot from the experience. And, now I have the ability to go on any long trail and, get started. And I learned all of these skills that I didn't have before. So I think kind of trying to flip it, say, yes, I'm disappointed. This didn't happen. I didn't get to complete the big goal, but what did I get to accomplish, and even though I was on the trail for only, less than 2 weeks, I still, hiked 100 miles. That was my longest hike I'd ever done. I hadn't hiked 100 miles before. I hadn't spent that many consecutive nights camping and hiking and backpacking. So I feel like I still was able to accomplish something, even if it wasn't exactly or even close to what I had sort of dreamt of.
I love that. You can't take the experience away. I love that outlook that you're looking at. You discovered some things about yourself. You learned. You can't take that experience away. And for everybody listening, Nelson Mandela spent decades in prison. And when he finally got out, he said, they asked him how he was in such good spirits. And of course, was disappointed being sent to prison and he felt like he shouldn't be. But he said, they had my body, but they'll never get my heart or my mind. And my friends, I would ask you, like, in anything difficult, you're going to face some struggle. You're going to face some limitations, but you control your choices. You control that. People can't take that away from you, your outlook, your happiness. And so kudos to you, Lauren, for having that. Of course, it's okay to have some period of disappointment, even grief when you have some failure. And we all have felt that way. But kudos to you for coming out of that and saying, you know what, I got some great things that can never be taken away from me. And I'm going to apply those in the future.
Thank you.
Now the question we ask every single Limitless guest, and I love that we always get a different answer. What does the word limitless mean to you?
Oh, this is a hard one. The limit does not exist. I think for me, especially, I have a tendency, I like to dream big and make really big plans, but I have a tendency to let other people sort of make those things smaller or put limitations on those, or, be influenced by people's, well, what if this, what if that, what if, especially I ran into that while I was planning my PCT hike. People were supportive, but to a point, right? Well, oh yeah, you could hike that, but do you have to do it by yourself? Or is it safe for you as a woman to be out there by yourself? Or so I felt I could feel people putting these sort of limits on me, and really had to just, I think, sit down with myself and say, is this something that I want to do? Is this how I want to do it? And if that is the case, then I really just need to not let the limits of other people, kind of box me in here. And maybe that's a really long-winded way to answer that. But I think for me, especially, thinking about the possibility of limits or being limitless, I think a lot of that for me is external, because I like to dream big and I like to, make really big, weird plans. But yeah, find myself kind of easily influenced by the worries and concerns of people that are close to me. So to, break past that and become, limitless would, for me, be able to like stick to my core, stick to that dream, stick to my, be confident in the decisions that I make, and know that, maybe other people don't understand them, but they're right for me.
The biggest limit in our lives is ourselves, our own thoughts, right? And our own ideas, the what ifs, the worry. But the second biggest limit in this world is who we listen to. If we let outside forces limit us, that can really put a damp blanket. And I know what that's like. I moved to San Diego 10 years ago, and some people very close to me told me I was making a mistake. And it really made me second guess myself until I said, you know what? I have to do it. I have to take this chance.
Yeah.
And so that message, everybody, just outside forces, we've talked about this before in the Limitless Podcast, that sometimes they mean well. They're just trying to protect you, or it's their fears projecting out onto you. But be very cautious about who you let influence you when it comes to chasing your big goals and dreams. And I'm really glad, Lauren, that you didn't listen to that and you didn't listen to any inner critic, and you just got out there. We talked about finding you on YouTube, Lauren Roerick, LAUREN Is there anywhere else we find you? Instagram?
Yep. Instagram's a big one. It's exactly the same. So that's nice. Same thing, first name, last name. Yeah. But Instagram and YouTube, those are the big ones.
You can check out those famous pictures that we talked about earlier on Lauren's Instagram at Lauren Roerick. And then last question for you, Lauren, I'm really glad you were here today. Thank you for taking time out of your day, even though you are Canadian and steal all our gold medals in ice hockey. Talk about disappointment. I'll let that go for now. What is your best advice? I mean, you had this big goal, and frankly, not a lot of people understand it. In the hiking community, most people understand what it's like to chase after a goal like the PCT or the AT or the Continental Divide Trail. But outside of that, it's mixed. People think you're crazy. People think it's cool. People think you're nuts. People think you're stupid. I think this happens with any big goal that seems impossible or just like so far out there. What is your best advice for somebody who's listening to this today, who's thinking about some big goal in their life that they need to take action on, but there's some sort of holdup?
Whether it's a blessing or a curse, but one of my sort of life values or life mottos is simply, how hard can it be? Which, maybe sounds flippant, but I think can help you put things into perspective. Like, if you want to sit down and say, how hard can it be? Then write a list of all the things that you think might be hard, or might, the challenges that you might encounter as you try to work towards that goal. So I think you can take that, how hard can it be, a little bit more practically, and actually sit down and create lists for yourself. I find that the more prepared you are for unexpected circumstances, the easier it starts to become and the more tangible your goal starts to feel. I think I was watching Frozen 2 with my little sister. She's 10. I'd never seen that movie before, but we just watched it. And their big like underlying theme is like, do the next right thing, right? Take the next right step. So just, kind of figure out your list of worries and concerns, and then take your next step, take your next smallest step towards what you're working towards. And I think, you get a few steps down the line and it starts to feel less scary and less big. And, breaking things down into little pieces for me, or like, whatever micro goals or whatever people like to call them, I think is something that makes things less intimidating. So for something as big as the PCT, yes, you can start at mile 0 and look and go, oh my God, I have 2,650 something miles to walk. And, I don't know if I can make it and whatever, but, take that first step, get to mile 1, find your first water source, and just start to break it down into smaller things. And it's going to feel way less intimidating.
Fantastic advice, Lauren. I'm so glad you were able to stop by the Limitless Podcast today. I know we're going to get through this crazy situation in the world, and I really hope this year or very soon you get back there on the trail and can complete your mission. And I sincerely hope that you will continue your vlogs, your videos, because they are awesome. Everybody, please go check those out. So thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
The application today is take Lauren's advice. Ask yourself, how hard could it be? And take the next step. Get a sheet of paper out, open a Word document, and write it down. What are the hard things? How hard could it possibly be? What's going to get in your way? And then take the next right step. Step after step, amazing things will happen. How hard could it be? Get after it, my friends. Huge thanks to Lauren Roerick for being on the show today. Circumstances do not dictate your future. You can do anything you set your mind to because you are limitless.